Hello, and welcome to this webinar for Practically Perfect PA. This webinar is about finding your voice and having impact in meetings. We will discuss the issues about speaking up in meetings and how to build your confidence. We will learn some practical steps to finding your voice and how to contribute with impact, and crucially, how to ask for feedback. By the end of this webinar, you will have the tools to empower you to go into meetings with confidence and use your voice with authority. So who am I? Well, my name is Abby Jones. I have been an EA for about 20 years now. I've worked across several different industries and sectors. I've been in the arts, in charity, finance, travel, fashion, beauty, and now I am in the tech industry. I've won several PA of the Year awards, and I'm also an ambassador for the System Room. I'm also a coach and mentor to EAs and PAs exclusively. I do bespoke one-on-one sessions, group sessions, and also I am hired by companies to give talks to PA groups and communities within that company. If you want to look me up, you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram as the PA Coach. So let's begin. Now, for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to use the words EA, PA, admin, assistant interchangeably. It doesn't mean that I'm specifically referring to just one of those job titles. I'm using it as shorthand for all of those kind of roles. So, first of all, how have you felt when you're suddenly told you have to speak up in a meeting? Have you ever had that sort of nerve-wracking feeling where you suddenly have to talk and everyone's looking at you and your mouth feels like it goes dry and your heart feels like it beats really fast and maybe your palms go a bit sweaty and it feels like you've suddenly forgotten how to talk or how to use words? I feel you. I've been there. I get it. I always feel like all the eyes in the room are looking at you and I suddenly feel really hot, and unfortunately I'm the kind of person that blushes really easily, so I feel like I look like a tomato, which doesn't do wonders for one's confidence. So the good news is this is all completely normal, and I think most of us have experienced this feeling at one time or another. From my experience, confidence comes from repetition. The greater the number of times that you do something, the greater your confidence will grow. So think of confidence like a muscle. The more you train it and use it regularly, the more that muscle grows bigger and stronger, and then it's easier to handle those uncomfortable butterfly feelings. Let's talk about some practical steps to growing your confidence. First of all, ahead of time, let's acknowledge that if you are not familiar with speaking up and it's a new experience, or it just always feels uncomfortable, then it's really okay to sit with those feelings. We can say, I'm not loving this feeling, but it's only going to be for a short period of time. And it's really a small amount of discomfort for me to take one more step to being comfortable. So I can guarantee you that most speakers you see, whether it's on TED Talks or someone's done a presentation on LinkedIn, or it's a webinar, or it's your CEO speaking in a meeting, they've prepared in some way, definitely in advance. Now, they may have rehearsed it, they may have written down notes, maybe they've gone over it in their heads, but very few people speak off the cuff completely unprepared. And you really only get to that stage once you're really, really confident and you're talking about a subject that you know inside out, or you have delivered that talk many times, and you can start to kind of riff on that. But for most people, they've definitely prepped. They haven't just wandered into a meeting and started talking about the first thing that comes into their head if they want to have significant impact. So if you need to speak up in a meeting, let's say for the purposes of this talk that there's an agenda item that you need to give feedback on, or you need to deliver, or you need to give an update on, something like that, then you know this in advance, and therefore you can practice in advance. So I would say, think through what the main points that you want to address and get across are. You can have them in a bullet list, you can just jot them down, you can put them in notes on your phone. Think about what are the key pieces of information that you need your listeners to go away with, and give any background context that you need to deliver. Give that in a quite obvious, clear, formulaic way, so that it's not a rambling train of thought. It's logical and easy to follow, because for most agendas, they're probably timed. So you may have 5 minutes, you may have 10 minutes, you may have 30 minutes. But if you have those ideas written down, what do you want to get across? What are the key points? What's the background? What's the update? What's the resolution? If you can have those written down, and it's perfectly okay to take notes into a meeting with you, that's absolutely fine, then you're halfway there. If you're really, really worried about the speaking part, I always suggest practicing. So I've been known to record myself on my phone. I talk to inanimate objects. I talk to myself in the mirror. I just want to make sure that the way I'm delivering it is easy to understand. And this way it gives enough time for you to practice. Now, if you're asked a question that maybe you don't have the answer to at the end of your talk, you can always say you'll come back to it outside of the meeting. So don't feel that pressure of an unexpected question. For example, if you're used to giving talks and you get Q&As at the end, sometimes you might know in advance the kind of questions that come out, and other times you have no idea what people are going to ask you, and that's always a bit of a hair-raising moment, but there's ways around that. So another practical tip is to consider how you are going to use your voice. It is so tempting to speak really fast and kind of rush through the topic you're delivering, because you want to get it done as quickly as possible. You just want it to be over, so you're going to speak really fast. The problem with that is that, first of all, it makes it really hard for the listener to hear very well, because you speed through, so it doesn't give the listener's brain enough time to process what it is you're saying. And you might have tripped over your words, for example. And also, it gives the impression that you're nervous. And the last thing you want to do is give the impression that you're nervous. You want to give the impression that you're very calm and in control. So the best thing you can do is to speak quite slowly and regulate your tone and pace. And again, if you've practiced this and recorded yourself or done it in the mirror, you'll see when you're speeding up, or how you're delivering that information. So I'll give you a really personal example. I'm a part-time sessional registrar. So at the weekends, I have the privilege of marrying couples. And there's nothing more stressful than standing in front of a bride and groom and the witnesses and their guests, and having to basically speak publicly and take them through their vows. And the best tip I was given in my interview when I applied to do that role was to imagine that I'm speaking to 8-year-olds, right? It always makes me laugh when I think of it. I was so nervous in that interview. It was really stressful. So imagine you're speaking to a classroom of slightly hyperactive primary school children. You would want to use a very calm, very clear voice, which can be understood and has a moderated tone and pitch. So you can apply that in whenever you're delivering a talk or speaking up in a meeting or giving a webinar or recording something. Just imagine that you're speaking to slightly hyperactive children who need a calm, authoritative voice. Now, body language is also really important. If you think you might fidget or your hands might shake or you have a nervous habit of whatever it is, it's okay to hold something. Like you could hold your notepad with your notes on or your phone with your notes on. You can hold the little clicker if you're using a PowerPoint display, or you can simply just lightly clasp your hands in front of you. By all means, have a look at the TED Talk. I think it's Liz Cuddy. I apologize, can't remember the name, but it's a TED Talk on the power stance and the power pose. And it talks about how to regulate your breathing and how to create that body confidence language in the way that you hold yourself and express yourself and move your hands. So one of the most important ways to project confidence is to feel like you have and deserve a place at that table. So I think if you have something to say, then it is worth listening to. Your voice as an admin and your opinion as an admin is just as important as the CEO's. You have just as much right to be there. You wouldn't have been asked to speak at that meeting or attend that meeting if you had no business being there, but you really do. I personally think that there is the feeling that as an admin, we are quite often in the background supporting very visible people do their work. And as a result, we're not used to having all eyes on us. And when that happens, it can feel really uncomfortable because that's not what we're used to for many of us. So I think stepping out of your comfort zone is quite good because it allows you to grow that confidence and have that belief that your voice should be heard is just as important. I think also admins are quite often expected to feel confident in giving updates, speaking as the voice of authority, or representing someone as a delegate. However, we may not have received any professional investment in our confidence growth, or any professional training, or public speaking training, or anything like that. Our executives may well have received leadership development, mentoring, and they're encouraged to find their voice and contribute to meetings, or they just simply might have a role that requires that. I don't think that many admins benefit from that training sometimes. And of course, it totally depends on who you work for and so on, but I think a lot of us don't get that opportunity. If your work has the budget, it might be worth investing in some professional development, or you can seek private coaching or training if you wish to fund it yourself. There are also plenty of free resources online that you could explore in this area. As I was talking before, I do think a lot of admins are used to staying in the background and making that magic happen behind the scenes. So again, when we're suddenly in the limelight, it's not a comfortable place to be. I think, however, if you can regularly choose to step out of that zone and to choose to speak up, that choice gives you control. So you could deliberately and intentionally set a goal to, let's say, lead an agenda or chair a meeting or raise a point or make a comment or ask a question, rather than just, for example, take notes, which is great but somewhat reactive. You could choose to be an active participant in the meeting. And it's just each time you do this, your confidence is going to grow and you will have created a space where your voice is expected to be heard. It's normal to be heard. It fits in. And every small time you do it, it's just that little step closer to feeling more confident. And I think if you can start small and work your way up and get used to those feelings of nerves and get used to those eyes being on you and get used to that feeling of the dry mouth and the beating heart that I mentioned earlier, the more you can sit with that and feel comfortable and take steps to develop that, the more you're going to grow. So something you could proactively do to help yourself deliver with impact is to ask for allyship. Now, this could be a trusted colleague, it could be a line manager, or it could be any other relevant stakeholder who's going to be in that meeting that you have to speak up in. Now, their role is to give you support in the meeting. You can look at them when you have to talk so that you don't have to worry about looking around the whole room. You could just focus maybe on one of them and maybe another person just to begin with. They can give you verbal or non-verbal encouragement like nodding or agreeing or whatever it is. The way that you can ask for this allyship is to approach whoever it is. Let's say for me, it's my line manager who's going to be at this meeting, and I've been asked by my line manager to give an update on an agenda item. And I could approach and say, hey, I'm really excited about this opportunity and I'm looking forward to giving the debrief because we've done some really interesting things, but I am a little bit nervous and speaking up in front of the CEO or whoever it is, and I just feel a bit anxious. Do you have any tips that I could use? Do you have any good pieces of information you can impart, any words of wisdom? Do you have any things that I could maybe watch out for? Could I maybe run it through you first so that you know what I'm going to say, and if there's anything I need to tweak, you could let me know. And perhaps during the meeting, is it okay if I just kind of look at you if I'm feeling a bit nervous, and you can just like nod your head and let me know if it's going okay, or just let me know how I'm doing. So it doesn't have to be a big official thing. It's just, hey, I'm just asking for support because this is actually something that I'm a little bit anxious about and I haven't really done before, and I want to make it the best that I can do. That brings me on to asking for feedback. So I totally understand that when I said that, maybe some of you thought, no, that's the last thing I want to do. Who wants feedback? Who wants to be criticized? Who wants to hear negative things? So now, first of all, what I have noticed is when you ask for feedback, the majority of feedback you're going to get is not going to be negative or constructive. It is going to be positive. And you can ask for feedback from a variety of different people. So using our ally for first example, you could ask your ally, how did that go? Did I get my point across well? Could I have done anything differently? Was there anything you could think I could improve on? And what did I do well? So you're asking for constructive but useful, positive information and feedback. Now, the key thing you're going to want to hear is, did the listeners understand what you were saying? How was your tone and delivery? Could they hear you well enough? What worked well? And maybe what could you benefit from adjusting? Maybe, for example, you used a lot of acronyms and it was being delivered to a meeting of people who were perhaps new to the company or didn't know those acronyms or external to the company and wouldn't know what the acronyms meant. Now, it's quite likely that when you start asking for feedback in the context of growth, because this is the point of it, it's not to make you feel bad, it's to help you get better and more comfortable and do better, you're going to receive really useful, positive suggestions and comments. And if you have a performance plan that you're working to or a goal that you have set, that's something that you could be putting into your end of year review or your kind of updates or however it is that you run them. Having that as a goal, as in my goal is to feel more confident in speaking up in meetings, to deliver key pieces of information, or to, by the end of this half, to have given XYZ in an update. And if you can show that you're taking steps, that's really a very good example of growth, learning, and development, which can only reflect well. I mean, who doesn't want that on their end of year review? Now, in summary, preparation, repetition, and feedback are going to be your keys to success here. So becoming comfortable with your voice and utilizing it to gain authority and to have impact in meetings is just as important as what you say. I really hope that you have enjoyed this webinar and found it useful. I wish you the greatest of success in your meetings and speaking up and giving impact in the future and in your careers. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. And thank you.